Then moving on to tonight's session, the title is The Role of Applied Behaviour Analysis in Vocational Education. And I just want to tell you why we're presenting this evening. And it really started with the link that's in the chat right now, which was an article that was published on May 4th in the national newspaper that's published here in the UAE. And it was all about Sanad Village, which of course Mahmoud is going to tell us about later. But it made me, you know, as I was talking to my colleagues, Dr. Clodagh Murray and Dr. Sarah Mead Jaspers, we were like, this would make a really great ACE event to talk about, you know, what is vocational education, what is the importance of it, and what part do we have to play in this as a behaviour analyst? What can we do? Can everyone hear me? One of our attendees, Mahmoud, has indicated that he can't hear anything. If you can hear me, can you please just indicate so in the chat? Mahmoud, I recommend perhaps leaving the session and re-entering, and hopefully that will resolve your audio issues. So that was really the reason why we're coming here this evening. So we are very fortunate to have three absolutely fantastic speakers. So we're going to start with Ms. Khawla Barley. She'll be our first speaker. She is the head of initiatives with the Special Olympics UAE, and she will tell you a little bit more about her role there when she begins. And we're really excited to have Khawla here because ECAE has an official partnership with the Special Olympics. So we're absolutely thrilled that she was happy to come here and speak to you this evening about vocational education and the efforts made within the Special Olympics. Our second speaker then, who will begin at around 5:30, is Mr. Mike Ballard, who is the lead vocational therapist at the Mohamed bin Rashid Centre for Special Education, which is operated by the New England Centre for Children. So he'll be talking about all the wonderful work that he's been doing with his team and his students at MRC-NECC. And then at about 6 o'clock, Mr. Mahmoud, another BCBA, he is the director of the Early Intervention Programme at Sanad Village in Dubai. He's again going to take us through his programme and the role of ABA within his vocational education programme at Sanad Village. So we're really, really excited. I'm glad your sound is back, Mahmoud. Just one final thing. If you do have questions as the speakers are presenting, they will be keeping an eye on the chat, but they may miss your questions. So what I'm going to be doing is please put your questions in the chat. I'll make a note of them. If the speakers see them, they'll address them in the moment. If not, I'll make a note and we'll address them at the end of each session. So I hope that sounds okay. So without further ado, I'm going to now pass over to Ms. Khawla Barley. Thank you, Khawla. You're muted, Khawla. And Mike, if I can ask you to mute yourself as well, Mike, if you don't mind. Thank you so much. Khawla? Here. Just everyone, if you can bear with us, I can actually unmute you, I think.
I found it. I'm terribly sorry. I'm not really used to the WebEx platform, so I have to kind of scroll around to find where the controls are. Apologies.
No worries.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this talk tonight. As Michelle mentioned, I am the head of initiatives at Special Olympics UAE. We do work very closely with the Emirates College of Advanced Education. We also, I'm really proud to say, have official cooperation, agreements of cooperation with both Sanad Village and MRC. So this is a really lovely group to be a part of this evening. You may notice that I am not a BCBA. So I will be speaking to you from a slightly different perspective. Very happy to start this off and wanting to share with you a program that we have developed at Special Olympics UAE called Unified Robotics. And one of the aspects, I think, when we look to develop programming is looking for really pathways. So again, the development of, a one-off activity is wonderful. Everyone likes to go out and have a good time for a week or a few weeks. But when we're looking to really promote inclusion within schools and the community here in the UAE, we're looking to develop pathways. So I feel that the Unified Robotics program is a program that really offers a wonderful pathway for students from their very early years and can really support the development of vocational opportunities. So I want to share with you the program. And I'd really love to hear from anybody who is a BCBA or working with children with special needs. Are you involved in robotics at all? Are STEM activities part of your curriculum? Is it something that you have, used ABA implemented ABA in STEM programs before? I'd be really interested, and I'll share with you some of the findings that we've had here in the UAE as we go along, but please do share your experiences. So, first and foremost, 80 to 90% of adults on the autism spectrum are unemployed. This is a high number. So, we're looking at about 15% who are employed and 85% being under or unemployed. Now, that's bad news, but there is also, always a silver lining. So there are opportunities. So to date, a lot of the focus when you discuss autism, individuals with autism, is on really looking at the characteristics of autism. The physical and psychological, the behaviors and barriers. But there's not as much work done exploring the opportunities. So what are things that, are generally of interest? Where are the strengths? Where do we find strengths across the spectrum? So one in every, for every computer worker, so every person working with computers, there are estimated to be about 3 available jobs in the job market right now. But in contrast, if you're a construction worker, for every 6 construction workers, there's only 1 available job. So we see clearly that there's an opportunity here. Away from, manual labor jobs, many of which are being, replaced and made redundant by technology in many cases, and an increase, a surge in need for people who have computer skills. And here's our opportunity. Because as we know, many individuals on the autism spectrum have a natural affinity for STEM activities. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the scene that I have a photograph of here, which is a young man who is engrossed with Minecraft and computer games. This is something that we see across children in general right now, but obviously this is something that tends to be a strong interest of many children on the autism spectrum. So where are the positives? Where are the strengths and the interests? The ability to persevere at a problem long after many other people would give up on something. Okay, my son is on the autism spectrum and I see this every day. If I run into a glitch in my phone or my computer, I'm frustrated and, wanting to throw in the towel after a few minutes, whereas he will really, really keep at it. Again, narrow focusing, being able to really, really hone in on a problem and sort of exclude all others. So really that focus. Also, the strong visual memory and recall is a positive in the STEM field. And many, not all, but there are a number of individuals on the autism spectrum percentages that excel in math and languages. Okay, so we have talent, and who's hiring? So I'd be really interested to hear from our colleagues in America what their experience, if they have any experience with employment, particularly in the tech field. because there are a number of, tech giants that are investing in hiring and retention of individuals with special needs, and particularly individuals on the autism spectrum who have the aptitude and motivation. Okay, now notice, I didn't say necessarily all the skills, but the aptitude and the motivation. And I think what is really so interesting and inspiring to see is, for example, Microsoft. Their autism hiring program is literally designed with people with autism at the center. So they don't have interviews where you come in and sit for 30 minutes and I'm going to ask you a laundry list of questions. What's your strength? What's your weakness? That type of thing. They bring a pool of individuals that have been identified as being, candidates for a job, and they bring them in for a week. And they do a number of activities across a range of areas that have been identified as, helping them determine if they will be suitable for this job, happy in this job, and if they have the aptitude and motivation to develop in this chosen job. So it's very, very, inspiring to see big companies like this. There are tech companies that have literally 75% of their workforce are individuals on the autism spectrum. So a lot of work being done globally in the integration of individuals specifically with autism into the STEM field. Now, this is not a conversation that has really been open here in our region. So one of the aims of the Unified Robotics program is to try to open up that conversation. There's a huge opportunity. There is a huge promotion of STEM within schools. There's a huge investment into education and human capital in the STEM field, but yet we haven't opened that conversation about how do we utilize all of this, sort of all the talent that is out there within the POD community. Okay, so our opportunity is obviously, currently it's estimated there are about 5.7 million job openings in the STEM field that require a BA or less than 2 years experience. So you don't have to be Bill Gates, you don't have to be, the CEO of IBM, but these are, basic, fairly basic computer skills. 5.7 million jobs. And we have individuals on the autism spectrum, 80 to 90% being under or unemployed. Now that's an incredible opportunity. Again, not all of that 80 or 90% will be suitable for the 5.7 million job openings, but certainly some of them will be. Now, Unified Robotics. So that gives you a little bit of background on what was the push behind Unified Robotics. So this is a bit of a pet project of mine. Special Olympics International launched Unified Robotics in the state of Washington, and it was actually founded by a student. So a high school student named Delaney Foster, who lived in Washington State, had a sister who was on the autism spectrum, and she wasn't sporty. But yet her sister, so Delaney saw the benefits of Special Olympic programming that was happening, was bringing together students with and without disabilities, and she saw that positive impact. And yet she also noticed that her sister just wasn't interested. So she went to her robotics club and asked them if they would be interested in joining forces with, her sister and her sister's peers, and coming together to create a robotics program that could benefit, students of all abilities. And that is how Unified Robotics was born. So the idea behind it is, again, unified, bringing together students with and without intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so the Unified Robotics program introduces people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to high achieving peers. Generally speaking, those students that are involved in robotics tend to be in the high performance category. So you're bringing together these two groups. And often these high achieving students may not have exposure to people of determination, people on the autism spectrum. But by bringing them together on this single team for a single purpose and bringing them together, very importantly, as equals, where everybody's talents and passions are respected and included, meaningful relationships are developed. The experience really breaks down barriers, and these students learn to communicate effectively with a very broad range of individuals. And that communication development happens on both sides, right? You know, the mainstream students, general education students, are learning to communicate with a population that maybe they don't have a lot of experience with, their peers with autism. And the peers with autism are having a chance to engage one-on-one with a peer group that they may not normally interact with. So the leadership skills that are developed amongst the mainstream students can really lay the foundation for inclusion throughout higher education and future workspaces. So this is where we really see huge impact. And I've seen this happen over the last 5 or 7 years in our community as we've been working, bringing together students, again, with and without autism or intellectual disabilities. I've had students that have worked on, you know, sports teams, and they call later when they're in a job and for a project or a program. And this is exactly what we need. People that are given the opportunity to learn from each other. Now, again, the unified strategy, bringing together students with and without individuals. Now, unified robotics, one of the very important components is that we have an access point for students of all ages. So you see here, this is from 2019, obviously pre-masks and social distancing, one of our kindergarten teams. So we work with Lego Robotics, which has a wide range of resources. And the robotics kit that you're looking at is called Coding Express. And it is literally a train set with colored, I don't know if you can see, you see a yellow sort of connector piece on the track. There are different color connectors, and those different connectors give the train different signals. All right, so one of them will have the train stop, one would have it reverse, whatever. So this team was tasked with creating a train that would be able to go around the track, stop, and shoot an arrow into the target. And they were very successful. And they did this on their own, together as a group. And this was kindergarten students. And through that experience, they are learning the basics of coding. Okay, so that is STEM. Now, I want to ask those of you, I saw someone mentioning at the Dubai Autism Center, you have robotics sessions, and I would really love to talk to you about that. That's amazing. But I want to know from you guys, how many of you all that are working and engaging directly with students or adults on the autism spectrum, how many of you are confident in your STEM skills? How many of you, implement STEM programs? Because I'll share with you, I mean, I'm hoping I'll get a response or two, but I'll share with you, when we launched Unified Robotics in 2019, and we began our initial outreach and briefing with special education centers, as well as schools, so SENs in schools. And what we heard back from people was, oh, no. My students can't do that. They're working on that. They're not good enough. They can't do this. Parents would tell us, no. My son, he needs to learn to read properly. We can't get him a good placement in school. We're looking to, get him into mainstream school. He can't do robotics. He needs to, in some cases, one mother actually said he can't tie his shoes, so he can't do robotics. So when I look at, and this was very, very widespread. I mean, some had, many had a very positive attitude, but they didn't have very much experience. And many of the parents and teachers reported back to us that they just didn't think this was a good idea. All right. And my question is, if we look at this kindergarten group here, putting colored bricks or colored connectors onto a train track and seeing a response, okay, and watching that happen and learning that pattern. I don't know. I mean, I think even if I'm not very good at multiplication, I might find that interesting. So in my mind, not being able to do multiplication or even not being able to add and subtract proficiently doesn't preclude a child from being involved in an activity like this. And most importantly, again, as I said, I'm coming to this from, a community programming, and looking to create opportunities. So what I look for is, how can I get students involved as young as possible? Because what I'm aiming to do is to help change people's attitudes. So what I want to do is I'm aiming to reach special education students and parents, and to provide a platform and to provide resources where they can comfortably engage their child in new activities and see, is that child going to take an interest in robotics? Not every student is. Not every child with autism is going to want to play with a train set or get involved in building a robot. But you'd be surprised how many are. And we don't know unless we have exposure, right? So when we were young, we learned what we're passionate about through exploring. Maybe your parents signed you up for Little League, or, you were exposed to a game at school. And that's how you started to slowly figure out what you were good at, what you were bad at, and what you really loved. All right. But oftentimes, children on the autism spectrum are so engrossed with therapy, and getting ahead and learning those critical life skills and meeting developmental milestones and getting ready for school, that a lot of this exploration doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in the younger years as well. So the aim of programs like Unified Robotics are to provide that opportunity, so that we can start to engage students at a young age in fun and simple STEM activities, to simply see who's going to have a passion for this, who's going to have an aptitude for this, and where can we take that? Where is that going to lead? All right. So the program, aside from introducing students, we also have to work with teachers. Now, I mentioned that when we launched Unified Robotics, not all the teachers were 100% sure that this wasn't just a nutty idea. But because what we did for me was the robot, or with special needs. So they have these two groups coming together, both with a real interest, but both of them needing some additional skills. And so Unified Robotics has that unique position of sort of helping teachers navigate both the STEM and the SEN. So as you can see, some of these teacher pairs, sometimes it was a tech coach with an SEN teacher, and they were learning from each other. And this we also feel is a wonderful opportunity to help promote the idea of STEM within special education. Another aspect of the program, again, we have exposure for the students, right? And awareness amongst teachers and parents and the community about the fact that this is an opportunity for individuals on the autism spectrum. And again, computer skills are life skills. You know, back to the mother who said, you know, my son needs to tie his shoes and he needs to learn to, you know, brush his teeth and do all of these life skills. When you break it down and you look at independence, you know, computer skills are a very necessary part. And the sooner that, you know, students get involved and comfortable with computers and using them for different functions, the easier time they will have gaining those important life skills. Now, we also are looking to impact the community. Obviously, you know, we want to get lots of special education teachers involved saying, yes, we think STEM is something that's going to work for us. We want parents to be thinking about engaging their children in STEM. We want the kids to be enjoying it, but we also want to involve the community with us. Because again, if we're preparing the students, we also need to be preparing the community. So where are all of our little STEM stars going to work? All right, in a few years, because right now we don't have a dedicated autism hiring program at Microsoft Middle East, but hopefully we will in the future. So currently we're working with, on the Unified Robotics program, our technical task force is made up of Aldar Education, KPMG we're welcoming to the fold this year, as well as Microsoft. So again, by having these partners working with us from day one and understanding what is our vision for a child as young as, you know, 5 years old, what is our vision for, you know, a primary student, what is our vision for a secondary student, and then how do we transition those students who have an interest and an aptitude and a motivation into vocational opportunities in the future. So that is, in a nutshell, what we are looking to accomplish with Unified Robotics. Again, not as much application, but a vision for how to introduce new opportunities into the community. And what I would really love to, you know, connect with any of you that have experience with programming in the field of special education, as well as those who would like to be involved. Because this is, you know, again, a great opportunity for us all to come together as a community and see what resources we can, you know, merge and create developmental pathways and vocational opportunities for our community. So thank you very much for your time, and I really would welcome any questions. If there are any questions right now, or feel free to get in touch with me after the talks.
Thank you so much,
Okay,
Khawla. Pardon, Khawla?
I was just going to say, Michelle, someone was asking where Unified Robotics is offered. So currently, Unified Robotics is offered across the entire UAE. In 2020, we did have to re-envision the program and went to some online virtual spaces. And we're currently looking into, you know, sort of a hybrid model for the 21-22 academic year. We have opportunities throughout the year. The competition season, if you will runs in October, November annually, then with a national final, because now we're big enough that we have regional and national in January. But we are, again, holding training opportunities. We actually, I'm really excited, we have a program the end of this month that is the basics of artificial intelligence. And it's actually being led by a group of superstar students in Dubai who created a workshop series for students and executed that during spring break. And they came to me and said, we want to do something for, you know, Special Olympics. We want to work with kids. They'd heard about robotics. They'd heard about some of the other programs. And so some of Mike Ballard's amazing colleagues from MRC and I are working with the students to, you know, adapt their materials and help them, you know, develop some skills for engaging online. And they will be working the last week of this month with a group of students. So if anyone is interested in opportunities like that, please get in touch. We'd love to connect you and provide those opportunities to your students. So again, there's opportunities throughout the year, but the main competition season will launch again in the fall, and it's open to all schools, all curriculums, all geography.
How fantastic. So it's so great that there's so many opportunities to get involved, and they can email you directly, Khawla, if they wish to learn more.
Yes.
Fantastic. And Mike, you can start sharing your slides there while we're just finishing up with Khawla, if you don't mind. And yeah, you asked the question, Khawla, about how many of our audience are confident in their STEM skills and are implementing STEM programs. Judy said that she's not confident at all. Geraldine said she's confident to introduce and do it step by step. And Arpana talked about the importance of those problem-solving skills that kids show that they are capable of through STEM programs. And I'm sure you've seen that, Khawla.
Yeah. We've heard, I mean, we have, you know, numerous case studies of students that, you know, were very shy and sort of had to be, you know, gently or not so gently encouraged into a robotics team. And the next year they were signing up for computer science electives and getting involved in F1 in the schools. So, you know, it is just a matter of that, you know, sometimes it's a matter of shifting the mindset into what opportunities you're going to encourage for your students. And that's what we're here to do, is not only help shift those mindsets, but then support with some training and exposure to skills.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Khawla.
Thank you.
That's absolutely fantastic. So we'll move on now to our second speaker. So please let me introduce Mr. Mike Ballard, who's a BCBA at MRC-NECC. So take it away, Mike.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for coming today, everyone. It's great to see so many people that are interested in vocational education from all around the world. My name is Mike Ballard. The last 5 years, I've headed up the vocational education department at the Mohamed and Rashid Center for Special Education, operated by the New England Center for Children. So I know we've got a couple people from America that are signed into it yet. So we are just a branch of the New England Center for Children in Boston, which is where I started my career. So part of the reason I'm excited to have a group like this is that vocational education is an aspect of a student's education that is very easily kind of pushed to the side in favor of some more classic classroom type activities. So the point that I want to get across tonight, the main idea, is that it's important to keep in mind vocational education and transition planning, regardless of the age of the student. So one of my favorite emails of all time came from a case manager who was working with a 12-year-old case student who was struggling with an objective. And the email read, "Guys, it's extremely important that we focus on skip counting with my case student because he's 12 years old already. So we've only got 9 more years left to work with him, and then he's on his own." Okay. And I think this perfectly encapsulates the urgency that's necessary when dealing with vocational education and transition to adulthood. Another aspect of this email that I like is that it applies to every student in every country across the world. And that's especially relevant today, given that we're presenting on a webinar with people from, I would get, my guess is there are 15 countries represented here, but maybe 20. But we have people from all over the world that are all working on the same thing. And collectively, every one of our students are going to run out of these services. And so it's up to us to prepare them for that transition to adulthood. We've assembled this panel with professionals from various backgrounds and various programs, and we're going to talk you through some of the proactive things that we're doing with our students to prepare them for transition to adulthood. I'll start by talking, I'll be starting things off by talking about curriculum selection and working with families to develop structured, focused, individualized education plans. Now, we're all here because we have students on our caseloads, and that means that all of those students are on a collision course with adult life. Okay, so to put things in perspective, I like to think of the numbers of hours in the day that we have to work with our students. Okay, and how are we utilizing those hours? So have a look at this graphic. If you work with students who are under the age of 12, they probably fall into this blue section on this graphic, where they're spending almost their entire time working in the classroom on sort of classic tabletop lessons, getting dedicated, focused instructions in the form of their education. Okay. So the million-dollar question is, how do we transition from 30 hours per week of dedicated instruction to 30 hours per week of unstructured time at home or in the community or at the job site? I think most of us are aware that that this is a difficult transition to make. But before we get going, I just want to share a few facts with you and paint a clear picture of what we're up against. And I'm curious, Khawla, you and I need to share our sources, because we came up with different unemployment rates, you get different stuff based on where you reach. But the first challenge for emerging adults with autism is actually a problem for us, the caregivers. We talked earlier about how every student in every program will eventually graduate, and in the U.S., that means 48,000 people with autism turn 18 every year. And caring for adults with autism is an expensive endeavor long term, and the estimates that they've put on range from $50,000 to $80,000 per year to care for one of these emerging adults with autism. Now, for me, that number, that cost per year of caring for an adult with autism, that should be our biggest incentive to be proactive about vocational education and teaching vocational education and preparing our students for transition to adulthood. Because for every skill that our students learn, for every door that they unlock, they get a bit more independence, and bit by bit, that cost by year goes down, so that maybe they don't need a dedicated caregiver full time, or maybe they're able to take public transportation so they don't need a driver full time, or maybe they can take a bike so they don't need to take public transportation. Okay, so every skill that we teach our students eventually will lower that number down. So I think that's a very important one for me. Now, on the individual side, unemployment rates range from 14% to 37%. And for adults with autism who have jobs, they're disproportionately underemployed, unemployed, or dissatisfied with their employment if they have it. And outside of work, low percentages of adults with autism live independently or graduate from college. So with all that hanging over our heads, the question remains, how do we transition from 30 hours per week of dedicated instruction to 30 hours per week of structured time at home or in the community? And the answer is vocational education and transition planning. So vocational education and transition planning, for the purpose of this presentation, I'll be focusing on the curriculum side of that equation as it relates to vocational education. Now, I put this graphic together because I think it does a good job of showing the gradual transition from classroom life into the different stages of life where students have a bit more independence. But let's start at the first level with age group 3 to 11. Now, this is pretty much autism instruction as the world knows it. Lots of tabletop classes, discrete trial training, group instruction, other activities around the classroom. Now, this is the time students should really be working on their prerequisite skills that are going to prepare them for vocational education, prepare them for adult life. So at the New England Center for Children, Abu Dhabi, every student in this section goes through what's called a core skills assessment. So in the core skills assessment, there are 7 domains: discrimination, communication, social skills, health, self-help, health and safety, recreation and physical education, community, and community. And within each domain, there are multiple different subdomains to be assessed. But for the purposes of today's presentation, I'm just going to focus on two: discrimination and self-help. Now, I love both of these domains because they're both at the bottom layer of the pyramid. And all the other skills that the students will learn are built on top of these skills. So as behavior analysts, we do a great job of getting our students to sit, listen to instructions, attend a lesson. But for people with autism, it's not a given that they'll be able to do things like match a picture to an object or match an object to a picture. So we have to test that as soon as the students enroll in the program. And what I love about, in particular, about the objective of matching a picture to object is this is something we'll test with a 3 or a 4-year-old intake. And it's an actual job that we use for our students in our vocational education department. Now, for this job, we have a supply room in our office, and I'm in charge of purchasing truckloads of items that the different classroom needs, and our students, our vocational students, fill the orders. So if you look at the order form, it's just matching the picture on the form to the object on the shelf. So we went full circle from a 3-year-old intake matching picture to object in the classroom to an 18-year-old vocational student matching picture to object at his job. And there are lots of other objectives like this that operate this way too. After we do our shopping and we have to stock the shelves, that's simply matching object in the bag to object on the shelf. That's all it is, matching object to object, okay? And then in our uniform room position, where students have where each piece of clothing has a number and there's a corresponding number on the clothes on the rack, that's just matching number to number, okay? So in a preschool classroom, matching a picture of a teddy bear to an actual teddy bear, that doesn't count as a vocational objective, but it lays a solid foundation for more advanced variations of that same skill down the line. So the other domain which also lays the foundation for success is self-help. Now, if you think of classic self-help skills like face washing, hand washing, combing hair, shaving, putting on deodorant, individually they're all important, but I don't think any one of them rises to the level of a behavior cusp or a behavior that once it's acquired opens up new opportunities and new experiences for the student, right? But if you think of them collectively, when you put together all together in self-help as a whole, that opens up so many doors for students in terms of independence. Because if you leave a house for a job, you have to have self-help skills. If you live alone and never leave the house, you still have to have self-help skills. So in terms of curriculum selection, I recommend assigning self-help skills early and often. Now, the core skills assessment really guides which of the skills we target in the early years of the program, because we assess each skill on a scale from 1 to 5. And then any skills that are less than a 5 are all potential objectives. So hopefully it isn't long before our students have 5s across the board, and we're free to expand to new and exciting pre-vocational activities. And these pre-vocational activities come from our Autism Curriculum Encyclopedia. Now, the Autism Curriculum Encyclopedia, or ACE, is a data bank that has over 2,000 lessons, and it tracks data, generates IEPs, and graphs the data all along. So the New England Center for Children in Boston has been around for over 4 years, and in that time they've saved every objective that's ever been made, and every piece of every lesson that's ever been made has been uploaded into the encyclopedia, and it's available for us to use. And so even though we're still operating on the lowest level of our pyramid in the age 3 to 11 age range, we can still work on vocational skills. They just might be vocational skills in disguise. So take social skills, for example. Working on social skills for a student under the age of 10 is something that's widely practiced. Now, does anyone have an example of a social skill that a 10-year-old student could target? Okay, you can write them in the chat. All right, I'm gonna pretend you're shouting them out. Okay, answer questions, customer service. Answer and reciprocate questions, customer service job. Social distance, any job where you interact with anybody. Social rules, any job where you interact with coworkers. Giving compliments, any job where you have coworkers. Receive compliments, conversational closings, eye contact, respond to farewells, respond to greetings, use polite manners, give compliments, ask questions, recall and retell. All of these things are skills that the students are going to need if they're interacting with customers or if they're going to be interacting with any of their coworkers. And all of these skills can also be targeted from the comfort of your own classroom, and then a couple years later, they can be used in the workplace, okay? Now, another group of skills that your students in this age range can work on is domestic care or tasks around the house, okay? So these types of skills are functional, relevant, and parents love them. So can anybody give me an example of a domestic care skill? Okay, folding pants, folding shirts, hanging shirts. You can use those for a job at Walmart, using a blender, cleaning the refrigerator, emptying the trash bag. You can use those for a job at a restaurant, vacuuming the floor, sweeping, collecting trash, any custodial position, set the table, recycle, unload the dryer. Like all of these are skills that you can teach in the school that are relevant in the house, but they're also relevant for the students as they get older and when they go out into the jobs, okay? So all these tasks that we're talking about now, between the domestic care and the self-help skills and these things like that, they're extremely relevant to independent daily life, but they also translate directly to entry-level vocational education jobs that the students get when they get older. So if you think about your first job that you got, the first job that you had, most likely you didn't get to make many decisions and you focused your efforts on a small number of repetitive tasks. That's exactly the type of job that we're going to look for when our students enter the workforce at age 15. For example, if you teach a student to wash a window in a classroom, a few years later, that student can go to a hotel and wash every window, mirror, and picture frame in every hotel room. Okay, that's a functional job that contributes to society, and you can use that one basic skill of window washing to launch a successful career, okay? And that's true for all of these skills we talked about. But this transition from the classroom into the workspace is only going to be successful if we take into account one key component, and that's generalization. Now, generalization is one of those areas that is extremely important, but it's also easy to forget about or easy to get set off to the side. Now, back in 1977, Stokes and Baer wrote An Implicit Technology of Generalization. Now, this title is a bit strange because of the term technology. Stokes and Baer weren't referring to technology in the sense of a smartphone. It's technology in the behavioral sense, or providing an accurate description of the components of an intervention. So in layman's terms, the title of the article is An Implicit Description of the Components of Generalization. Right? So they go on to describe all of the most commonly used generalization techniques. So train and hope, sequential modification, introduce naturally maintaining stimuli, train sufficient exemplars, train loosely, use indiscriminable contingencies, train sufficient stimuli, mediate generalization, and train to generalize. Now, in my opinion, this article is one of the top 10 greatest articles in ABA history. So if you aren't familiar with it, I would recommend checking it out because it's relevant to every student on every objective on your caseload. So if we stick to our window washing objective that we spoke about, this article reminds us to ask, am I using sufficient exemplars with my windows? Or is the student only going to be able to wash the one window that we've taught them on? Am I programming common stimuli to match the real world? Am I sequentially modifying my stimuli that as the skill develops? Okay, so if we keep generalization in mind from the start and program for generalization along the way with these skills that we're teaching in school, it'll be more likely that they'll be used successfully in the workplace. Now, finally, we've covered all the foundational skills and we're ready to move outside the classroom. At the New England Center for Children, we start pre-vocational education training at age 12. Our pre-vocational education training consists mostly of job simulation training. For job simulation, we take an existing job in the community, which is a potential career choice for the student, and we simulate that job inside the school. So for example, we have an internship at Emirates College for advanced education, and the students file books, sort books, and check in books there. Now that is a destination job when our students turn 12 years old. That's what we're shooting for when they get a couple years older. So to prepare our students for that role, we have a simulated library inside our school where each book is labeled the same, in the same fashion that they are at the internship, and each filing system is set up the same as the internship. So this gives us a few years of programming common stimuli in our training and preparing our students for transition into the workforce. Now on the graphic I have up, you can see that has a blurry boundary between the classroom environment and the work setting. That represents our generalization strategy of programming common stimuli and using naturally maintaining contingencies. So with these two overarching strategies will help us to blur the lines between classroom and the natural environment. Now you can see that this phase is where our students begin to spend more time in the community, whether it be through volunteering or community trips and the movies. Now, you're not going to have your hand cameras on, but I still want you guys to do a show of hands. Does any of our students, do any of your students carry reinforcer boxes? Okay, show of hands up. Okay, I'm sure we've got a lot of hands up, because one thing to consider is, that many of these jobs that these students are going to work in are customer facing. Okay, so we have another internship at a restaurant where students fold napkins at a table next to customers. Okay, if you have a stack of clipboards and a stack of edible reinforcers and timers, that certainly doesn't disqualify you from the job, but it doesn't help the students get those jobs either. So as the students get older, I think we should urge you to continually evaluate ways to streamline your data collection methods in terms of your clipboards and the size of your clipboards, and excuse me. Yeah, so sorry about that. Just got a little bit sidetracked. So in terms of community, I know a key component of a lot of behavior programs that we work in can come in some type of come with some type of edibles. I would encourage you to do your best to make your edibles as discreet as possible if you can't. If you have to have them, and try and have an extended period where the student goes between edibles, so that way you can work for 20 minutes and possibly have a break in a break room, or transfer that into a natural contingency where they can visit a vending machine. All different options to think of ways you can do that. Now, at the beginning of this presentation, I was very focused on individual objectives and structural aspects of vocational education. But as the students get older, it becomes more and more about small changes that we can make along the way to get our students ready for that transition, and keeping those changes in mind on a daily basis. So as the students are getting out into the community a bit, we would like them to try as many jobs as possible. Now, this is called job sampling. With job sampling, we just want to expose our students to as many different experiences as we can, so we can get a good understanding of the three key questions. What are they good at? What do they like doing? And what does their family prefer? Okay. Now, in the Middle East, we put extra emphasis on the role of the family in this equation. But even if you live in a Western society, the role of the family cannot be understated, because when schools finish and funding runs out, it's going to be the responsibility of the family to get the student to their job. And if the family isn't on board, then the job isn't going to be successful. At the beginning of this, now at the top of the pyramid, we have the different jobs in the community where students are working, and we're really dialed in on what the students have accomplished. Okay, so for this aspect of it, okay, this is the end game for vocational education. As students go further and further along, it becomes less and less about trying a variety of things and really focusing on certain aspects that are going to be their career, so that as they get closer and closer to that transition time of when they leave the program, they have more and more time in their job or in their community setting, and less time in the classroom, okay? But even in this setup, so even if a student is only in the classroom for 10 hours per week, they can still be working on some very targeted skills for the vocational education. So, for example, when I worked at the New England Center for Children in Boston, I was a job coach for a student who worked at Starbucks. And his objective that we worked on in the classroom was sight words, okay? Because he would stock shelves and box and unbox items and take away and put items where they needed to go. Our sight words were caramel macchiato, frappuccino, venti, grande, like every Starbucks buzzword you can think of. That's what we worked on in the classroom. So even a skill like sight words was something we were still working on to prepare the student for vocational education down the future. So I think I'm getting pretty close to the end of the time. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the questions much on there. Michelle, were there any questions you'd like to circle back to, just so we can make sure we got everybody?
Yeah, a great question just came in there from, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing it wrong, Jaya, and they would like to know what are the companies that are hiring adults of determination? Is it only IT or are there others? How about specifically in the UAE?
I think the biggest one that I've seen where like a corporate initiative is so what's the bank in Dubai?
Dubai Islamic Bank?
No, there's one bank that's really proactive about it, and I think the biggest company that's also done it is there was the coffee shop that started downtown that is with all people of determination. Yeah, but our students in particular we have a partnership with Emirates College for Advanced Education and the Grand Hyatt on the Corniche. So we've had success, finding those types of jobs. It's just there's not as much of a kind of a pipeline to get students into those positions. So, but they are out there, yeah.
Yeah, so a few people were jumping in there suggesting that it might be Emirates NBD. Oh, that's Khawla. So I guess that is one. Yeah, Geraldine is verifying it's Emirates NBD. And Arpana is saying Landmark Group also does it, and Khawla is saying Turf Cafe. Perhaps that's the one that you're mentioning there. And My Maximus too. Great. So yeah, please, everyone in the audience, please feel free to share your knowledge with your fellow attendees as well. Yeah, that was, I think you've kind of addressed all of our questions, Mike. And then I just made a comment about when you were talking about generalization of skills, that Kidzania in Yas Mall is just a great place for parents to bring their kids because they get to practice washing windows, earning money for it. They earn points, which they can then exchange for backup reinforcers. And like there's a hotel room where they get a visual a picture of what the room is supposed to look like, and then they need to match the picture to the room by making the bed, putting things away, closing and opening curtains, etc. So Maha was saying that she tries to generalize then the skills from Kidzania to home as well, which is fantastic. And I love that you spoke about the importance of generalization, and I put a link to that Stokes and Bear article in the chat as well. And then Farhan is saying that Cafe de Roma is another great one. Dr. Sarah is encouraging us to go to try out these new turf cafes. And isn't there a cafe, and Khawla, you're going to have to help me, there's a new cafe at Zayed Higher Organization as well that is run by their clients of determination.
Bumblebee Cafe? I think it's Bumblebee Cafe, yeah.
I was going to say something to do with bees, but then I was thinking I was getting mixed up. Yes, Bumblebee Cafe, that's the name. Yes, the Bee Cafe, Khawla is saying. So I encourage you all, just like Dr. Sarah, to check out these cafes as well, which are supporting people of determination working there. The Conrad Hotel in Abu Dhabi is another one. And then Jay, you put in a great link there to inclusive.ie, so we'll have to check that out. And then Farhan is saying ADUC will work with this cafe to hire people of determination to work inside, which is fantastic. So thank you so much. Does anyone else have any questions for Mike? I'll ask. I'm just going to give Mahmoud the powers to be a presenter. So Mahmoud, you can start sharing your slides while we're finishing up. Yes, Ahmed, yes, in ZHO, there's the Bee Cafe. I don't know where all it is. Is it open during these pandemic times? But hopefully, I haven't been there in a while, but hopefully it still is. So it's fantastic to see so many different institutions and so many different organizations offering this opportunity. So hopefully we'll gain momentum across the UAE. So thank you so much for sharing all that wonderful information. Mike, if there's there's one more question. Do you think there are any areas like beauty parlors or fashion stores? Does anyone in the audience, or Khawla or Mahmoud or Mike, is anyone aware of any kind of fashion or beauty oriented
I think
places?
with fashion and beauty, there's that's going to be there aren't many chains. Okay, so with a fashion and beauty type of setup, it would be like an individual basis. So if you would have a contact at Yas Mall, that would be an in to get a job there. But I think it would be tougher to have any like. But yeah, so that would be how I would approach it. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mike. And yeah, Ta Young in our chat is saying that My Maximus, I'm not familiar with this My Maximus, but they are currently hiring barber assistants for people of determination. And check out Splash as well, which are again a part of that landmark group. Thank you for that, Geraldine. So great, thank you all so much. Thank you, Mike. And yeah, and again, if there's any more questions for Mike, please put them in the chat. And we'll move on to our third speaker. So please allow me to introduce Mr. Mahmoud, and he'll tell you all about his role at Sanad Village. So take it away, Mahmoud. You're just muted, just so you know. There you go. Okay, over to you, Mahmoud.
You can hear me well right now? All right. Let me start by saying thank you to Khawla and to Mike. Great presentations with lots of information. And thank you, Dr. Michelle, for the opportunity. I think the three presentations, I was lucky to listen to both of the presentations, and I can see how they all work in the same spot where you're talking about the same idea, and hoping that we are going to benefit all of the audience today. I'm going to talk today about the role of applied behavior analysis in vocational education, and I'm going to talk more specifically about building an effective vocational training program inside Dubai, more specifically inside Sanad Village. So today I'm going to talk about the international vision and then UAE vision for people of determination. I'll talk a little bit about summary of Law 29, and then I'll talk about the national policy to empower people of determination. I'll talk also about the role of professionals and centers in educating and helping people of determination. I'll talk about Sanad Village as a facility. Talk also about the process of vocational training, and also assessing vocational tendencies for people of determination. We'll talk about the training steps in vocational training, the mastery and generalization of goals. I'll talk also about the research and development, and finally about employment opportunities for people of determination inside UAE. So meeting the international vision for people of determination. Exclusion of persons with disability from the labor market represents a significant waste of potential, resulting in an estimated loss of GDP of between 3 and 7%. This is coming from the International Labour Organization, 2009. People with disabilities make up an estimated 1 billion, or 15% of the world population. About 80% are of working age. The right of people with disabilities to decent work, however, is frequently denied. The same article is talking about how females are more to get denied in jobs and in job opportunities than males, which is interesting to know. Disability Inclusion Strategy and Action Plan 2014-17, published by the International Labour Organization, promotes guidelines for countries and government in order to achieve inclusion for people of determination in labor market. Now we'll talk about the UAE vision for people of determination. UAE government has issued multiple laws, policies, legislations concerning empowering people of determination and their families, starting from education all the way to employment. They first started by the federal law number 29 of the year 2006, and then the federal decree number 116, 2009, and then the cabinet resolution number 7 of 2010, and then law number 2 of the year 2014, and finally the national policy to empower people of determination in 2016. Now I'll talk a little bit about law 29 of the year 2006 in chapter 3, work. Article 16, 17 and 18 and 19 and some other articles are in general talking about how the government is going to support people of determination in order for them to find jobs on multiple levels. So Article 16 is stating the UAE national person with disability with special needs enjoy the right to work and occupy public positions for which the special needs in themselves do not constitute an obstacle hindering from applying and being selected for jobs. Special needs shall be taken into account upon undergoing the tests of competency to have the job people concerned with the provisions of this law. Again, 18 and 19 are both talking about how and they are outlining the work system and the duties and the responsibilities of all the stakeholders in details. Now we'll talk about the vision of UAE for people of determination. The vision states an integrated community free from barriers, which empowers people of determination and guarantees their rights to a dignified life. The mission is empowering people of determination and their families through setting policies and innovating services that allow them to enjoy a high quality of life. And they have set objectives to be achieved. First is achieving social inclusion, active participation of people of determination, enhancing equal opportunities, supporting individuals and their families, and finally, empowering individuals to perform their roles. And when they say to perform their roles, of course, in every aspect of life. And they have put, the policy has 6 pillars, and those 6 pillars includes healthcare and rehabilitation. Number 2 is education. 3 is vocational training and employability. 4 is accessibility and outreach. 5 is social protection and family empowerment, and 6 is public and culture and sports life. So let's talk about pillar number 3, because this is the scope of our talk today, vocational training and employability. The stakeholders as identified by the government is the Ministry of Community Development in UAE, the Federal Authority for Government Human Resources, the Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Human Resources and Emiratization, and finally, federal, local, and private centers for people of determination. So let's talk about federal, local, and private centers for people of determination. This is taken from the national policy to empower people of determination. And this is, of course, was published back in the time, it was in 2016. So the numbers and the statistics that you can see here is a bit old, but I'm sure the numbers has increased. but this is the latest number, documented numbers that we could reach and find. So in general, we have, back in that time, 7 federal centers, 23 local centers, and 57 private centers. Most of these centers are in Abu Dhabi. We'll talk about the workers in the rehabilitation centers. In general, we have 2,007 workers in rehabilitation centers for people of determination. And again, that was in 2016, and I'm sure the numbers has increased. So the role of professionals and centers for people of determination, beside the need of designing, implementing, and evaluating vocational programs to empower people of determination, it is essential for vocational trainers and vocational centers to recognize the barriers to successful employment following vocational training in order to plan and teach vocational students the strategies they need to overcome these barriers. So in your opinion, what are the barriers to successful employment for people of determination? What would be the barriers? Give you 1 minute. Yes. Right, communication. Social skills, right? Acceptance, good point. Appropriate training, society. Sensory stimulation, awareness, employers not knowing what they can expect, that's right. Behavior barriers, that's right. I can see that most of the answers are on point. So I want to share with you what Laura et al. In 2019 has outlined in her research. She spoke about the barriers to successful employment following vocational training. Well, first of all, social deficits related to interaction and initiation, such as difficulty in understanding facial expressions, difficulty in understanding tone of voice, difficulty reading between the lines, difficulty performing tasks independently, maladaptive behaviors, difficulty in planning, difficulty attending to relevant stimulus, lack of motivation, difficulty in generalization, difficulty in problem solving, and difficulty in completing tasks. Meeting the international and national visions in Sanad Village, Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Our top priority in Sanad Village is inclusion for all of our students in all aspects of life, including education and employment. I'm going to talk to you about the facility itself first, just to give you an idea about who's supporting us and how do we operate and how do we use actually all of these resources inside of Sanad Village. So Sanad Village is a 30,000 square meters area, opened its doors less than 2 years ago. It's located in the middle of the Dubai Sustainable City in United Arab Emirates. Sanad Village is owned by Diamond Property Developers that owns Dubai Sustainable City. So the owner is the same company. Students in Sanad Village have access with their therapists to all of the city different facilities, markets, stores, restaurants, offices, clinics, sports, and leisure units. Residents of the sustainable city are oriented about Sanad and its students before contracting for them to expect meeting the students on regular basis during weekdays or weekends. Sanad Village has simulation areas for the other work facilities inside or outside the sustainable city, such as Zoom Market, a local market, Core Care Health Clinic, Bagels, Bakery and Coffee Shop, Leaves and More Plant Shop, a planting dome, a carpentry workshop, a handicraft workshop, animal sanctuary, and mall dining area. And this is not everything, but few of them. This is how Sanad Village looks from here. You can see how big it is, and it's right in the middle of the sustainable city. Another picture. And this is a picture from inside one of the planetary domes that we have. This is the market inside Sanad Village. And this is the receptionist area for the mall area inside Sanad. Right now, I'll walk you through the process of teaching students all of those skills they need in vocational training. We start always by identifying the student's ability, and then we assess the vocational tendencies. Then we set goals, and then we have a focused training inside Sanad Village with the therapists, and then training with actual employees from the sustainable city, but inside Sanad. And then we take our students outside to real workplaces outside of Sanad Village, and then we achieve mastery and generalization of goals. Identifying abilities prior to vocational training. We can categorize the abilities in three broad categories. The physical abilities, that includes all of those abilities related to sports, handcrafts, painting, drawing, planting, carpentry work, grocery work, stationery and inventory work. And of course, this is not the limited list. Of course, the list can go on to all of those skills that requires physical abilities. The second category would be the verbal and the social abilities, including abilities that is related to receptionist work, call center, singing, or reciting Quran, help desk work or office work, or a voiceover if the student has the talent and the ability, of course. And there is also the technical abilities, the ability to use machines or tools or devices. And this is related mainly to computer and data entry skills, knitting skills, loom skills, printing machines usage, 3D printing, laundry machines, and also cooking equipment, musical instrument playing, and also, of course, as Khawla was talking today about the robots. This is a great area that we would love to explore as well. Physical, verbal, social, and technical abilities are not found in isolation, of course, and they tend to overlap within each individual. I want to stop here for a second and tell you guys, as the program director for early intervention program, I'm always searching for the talents. Any talent that a student can show is very important, because we would like to help him polish and use this talent. And we don't know, maybe later on the student can actually become able to maintain his own life based on this talent. So if we have a student who's talented in swimming, we would like him to be a swimmer at some point. I'm sorry if you guys are sending questions and I can't answer. I will answer by the end of the lecture. So we'll talk now about the assessment for vocational preferences, reviewing the existing methodologies utilized to identify vocational tendencies locally and globally resulted in the following. So there are two assessments that we found. A local one, which is called the assessment for vocational tendencies for people with mental disability, and this is translated from Arabic. And the other one is the evidence-based practices or preference assessment methodology based on the applied behavior analysis principles. Now we'll talk about the assessment published by the assessment for vocational tendencies for people with mental disability. It was published by the Ministry of Social Affairs in UAE. The version we have is in Arabic language. We don't have information if the assessment is available in English. It was published in 2011. There are two versions of the assessment, one for males and one for females. And the other evidence-based preference assessment would be the two broad categories, duration-based preference assessment or selection-based preference assessment. This is how the local assessment we found looks like. So basically, this is how it looks like. Every time you present 3 pictures for a student and he chooses one. To evaluate it in terms of or against the ABA principles and procedures, it's a pictorial preference assessment. It's some kind of variation of the multiple stimulus without replacement preference assessment. It quantifies the number of times the pictures are selected. The results are presented in levels of preference, high or moderate or low. It's time efficient and can be administered in few minutes. On every trial, pictures are presented to the students to select from in an array of 3. The unselected pictures are not presented in later trials. No information whether the examiner allows for brief engagement with the selected activity or not. No information available regarding the effectivity of this methodology with students with low discrimination abilities or low matching abilities or low scanning abilities or side preference. The duration-based preference assessment. Worstill, 2002, has stated in his article, several authors have reported the use of duration engagement as the index for preference of leisure activities. This measure also seems to be well suited to the assessment of vocational preferences. We use duration of engagement to measure vocational preferences and tendencies for the students as a well-researched methodology that has enough scientific evidence supporting the use of it. We'll go back to the process now after identifying the abilities and assessing the tendencies. We will be setting the goals. And let me ask you a question. What are the variables that should be considered while setting the vocational goals for the students? So what do you need to keep an eye on before setting the goal for a student who's receiving a vocational training? His motivation, safety, that's right. Current performance, right? Comfort, interests, skill motivation, independent skills. All of these are great answers. I want to share with you the availability of job coach, that's right. Environment, all of these are great answers. Let me share with you what the things that we need to consider while setting the goals. So first of all, we need to, I'll read from the left. The first thing is the age of student, of course. As Mike was saying in his presentation, it depends on the age of student. If he is an early intervention or pre-vocational or a vocational student, this is something that you need to be aware of course. Second is the student's preference. The more the student is doing something that he likes, the more likely he's going to be engaged and he's going to learn the required skills. Of course, the student's abilities, whether the physical or the social or the technical abilities, all of these should be considered. And of course, the social acceptability. Some of the jobs that might be accepted in Europe or in the States, may not be accepted in the Arabic world or the Arabic culture or the Indian culture. So this is something that we always need to be careful about. And also the available resources. This is a very important point. And it has something to do with the last point, which is the generalizability of skills. Are you going to be able to teach the skill in multiple places with multiple people to ensure the skill has been mastered or not? And also you need to be aware of your resources. Is it going to be enough? Do you need to watch out for all the logistics before starting to train a student? So setting goals, there are three main areas that within we would be able to choose the kind of goal that we need to target with the students. Some of those, a category is targeting the basic skills, and this is similar to what Mike was outlining in his presentation. And the other part is targeting common difficulties for elimination. And the third one is job-related goals that is very specific or may be specific. So targeting basic skills for acquisition, it can be related to personal hygiene skills like washing hands or face, brushing teeth or showering, dressing, toilet training, brushing hair, also related to discrimination skills, imitation skills, listener responding, tacting, manding, intraverbal skills, social interaction, fine and motor and gross motor skills, and of course, above all, the delayed gratification. You need, this is very important part to teach the student from the beginning, from an early age, in order for him to be able, when he reaches to the vocational age, he is able to maintain engaging in a skill for longer periods of time before getting his reinforcement or his rewards. And all of this list over here is taken from Laura 2019 article, which talks about the social deficits and interaction and the independency, and also the challenging behavior, the difficulty in planning, attending to relevant stimulus, and the motivation and the generalization and problem solving problems, and the completing tasks, of course. And now we'll talk about also a little bit about the job-related goals that can vary from one student to another. Dependent on the job requirement, of course, you need to watch out for the safety of skills that you need to teach. What kind of safety skills that a student has to acquire before he, start to engage in this job activity. Basic math skills, specific and advanced interverbal skills, writing, typing on the computer, calculation skills, computer skills, money value and money usage, cleaning and restoring, time telling, scheduling, problem solving skills, and so on. Now, interestingly enough, I found many vocational research out there in Arabic language. Most of these research have taken place in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt, in Jordan, only few in UAE, but most of them are in Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, and Jordan. Al-Muhiri, et al. 2013 recommended in a study titled Evaluating Vocational Rehabilitation Programs for Individuals with Disabilities in the United Arab Emirates. She recommended preparing and modifying the work environment before and during the employment process when it comes to the tools, devices, and physical structure. Additionally, improving social and psychological environment and relationships with the co-workers and the employees. تهيئة وتعديل بيئة العمل قبل وأثناء عملية التشغيل من حيث تعديل الأجهزة والأدوات والبيئة المادية، إضافة إلى تطوير البيئة الاجتماعية والنفسية ذات العلاقة بالزملاء وأصحاب العمل. The training. Our students get the training on 3 steps. Those steps overlap based on each individual needs and progress to ensure proper exposure. The first step is a focused training inside Sanad in the simulation areas. The second step is training with actual employees inside Sanad in the simulation areas. And then the third step is training in actual workplaces with actual employees of the sustainable city. Step 1, the focused training inside Sanad. We use multiple ABA teaching methodologies and procedures to ensure quality training for our students, such as errorless teaching, chaining, backward, forward, or total task, shaping, video modeling, pictured and written activity schedule, and discrete trial teaching, and so on. I'll walk you through those pictures. Those trainings are taking place inside of Sanad. The student is making a bird house in the carpentry workshop, or planting inside the dome that is located inside the sustainable city, inside Sanad village. Art and craft. And by the way, the kids get to, every now and then, they get to sell the products outside of the Sanad village, inside the sustainable city. Pottery work, and also caring for animals or pets is one of the things that we do, as we have a sanctuary area inside of Sanad village. The second step is training with the sustainable city employees inside of Sanad. So we bring employees from different stores inside the sustainable city to Sanad. And this is for multiple reasons. The first one is to observe them performing their different tasks to be able to create appropriate task analysis for each job-related task. This is one of the ways. Of course, not everyone will be familiar with making muffins or making waffles. This is not something that everyone knows. So we bring the expert, we observe them performing the task, and then we create our task analysis. The second reason is to introduce the students to the employees who will be working with them later in actual workplaces inside the city. And of course, to give those employees general and student-specific trainings about the disability in general, about ABA, about autism, about reinforcement usage, about task analysis and PICs, about student behavior intervention plans, about data collection, all of these things that will assist the employees themselves to work efficiently and smoothly with our students later on. And of course, to facilitate the stimulus control transfer to the employees instead of the therapist. In this picture, you can see one of the students is packing the rosemary, I think, inside the box before it goes to the shop to be sold, with his therapist to the left and the employee from the store inside the sustainable city, both of them together inside Sanad village. Another picture of planting. Another picture where in the simulation area, we get the students to water the plants or to learn how to buy and sell the products or bring the items through the till, or watering the flowers. And we come to the third step, training in real workplaces with employees of the sustainable city. At this step, we allow the employees to deliver the instructions and the enforcement and follow the behavioral plan themselves. Our ABA therapists feed themselves out during this stage. We increase the working time for the students gradually in this stage. This is in real life. So this is in Zoom market, the real Zoom market located in the sustainable city, where the student is with the employee with the help of the employee, is bringing the items through the till, or stacking, or organizing the shelves inside the store. And this is from Bagel's store inside the Sustainable City, where the student is learning how to make different items on the menu, making waffles. We'll talk about the mastery and generalization of goals, and I have to recall what Mike Ballard was talking about in his presentation. All of those different strategies to ensure generalization is amazing, and all of these strategies are very important, whether you are working with a student in early intervention or pre-vocational or vocational student. Generalization, without the generalization, you cannot call a mastery of a goal. You have to see the goal happening and occurring accurately and independently with more than one person in more than one place, with the variation in the SD, with the variation in the instructions and the places and everything. So an example of one of the goals would be the student will be able to complete the steps of the task analysis related to planting mint and rosemary with at least 2 of leaves and more store employees in multiple planting domes with at least 90% of accuracy and independence. Another one would be the student will be able to complete the steps of the task analysis related to preparing fruits and chocolate waffles with 2 or more of Bagels employees with at least 90% of accuracy and independence. This is just an example, can be written in multiple different ways. Research and development. Even though it is clear that vocational training is a step to successful employment for individuals with ASD, there is a lack of the quality of current vocational service programs and research on the best practices for teaching vocational skills. This is quoted from Chen et al. 2015, which basically outlines that this area of vocational training is poor, and I think after 6 years from publishing this article, the area itself is still poor, needs more research. I would say more fertile for research. The support Sanad receives from the Sustainable City Administration, residents, and employees is unprecedented, and it creates a unique educational and vocational experience for the students. The uniqueness of this program makes the BCBAs in Sanad in a constant state of designing, implementing, and evaluating for the procedures and the teaching methods. The opportunity for research is massive, and we welcome research projects through our research and development department. Employment opportunities for people of determination. يعتبر نجاح عملية تشغيل أصحاب الهمم مؤشراً لنجاح عملية التأهيل المهني. Employment of people of determination is an indication to a successful vocational training. This is taken from Sartawi 2016 article evaluating the effectivity of vocational programs inside the UAE. Employment opportunities for people of determination. The Ministry of Community Development in UAE has issued through its website multiple services. Those services are designed to empower people of determination and their families. Among those services are issuing people of determination cards, registering students of determination in rehabilitation centers, providing services for students at home, licensing centers for people of determination, recruitment of people of determination, posting jobs opportunities for people of determination, and many more other services. And this is the link for the website. However, I want to focus on those two. So basically, any person of determination can apply for a job through the website. And also, any entity or organization that would like to hire a person with a disability can also post the job through the website. And this is amazing because also I came recently to know that any company that will be hiring people of determination, they get more benefits and more help from the government, which is amazing as well. Now I want to talk to you about an interesting finding that I found while browsing through the website. While browsing through the website of the Ministry of Community Development, we have noticed the following. A total of 218 job opportunities were posted from various workplaces and entities. A total of 0 job seeking requests were submitted from people of determination. This could be an area of research for any interested researchers to answer the question and find why actually the attitude towards getting a job and find the reason why would people not be interested, people of determination not be interested in getting jobs. Those are my references. It will be available for you guys to go through, and I'm ready for answers to your questions, of course. Yeah, that's right, Khawla. It's very interesting. I would love to know why. Like to know vocational education centers.
Mohamed, this is Sarah, Dr. Michelle's colleague. I'm just jumping in for her here for a moment. She did note a lot of questions for you in the chat, and we definitely have time, if you do, to answer those questions. I don't know if you want to scroll back or you want me to highlight some of them for you. What's your preference?
I can actually go back a little bit and read through the chat.
Yeah, if you want to kind of pick out some, and we have them compiled for you if you want help.
Yeah, definitely. If you have any questions, please go ahead.
I think one of the first questions that might be helpful if you would describe to people is if people in this audience are interested in working at centers that support people determination and developing their vocational skills. So maybe people who are not necessarily a BCBA right now and are not working in this field. Do you have any advice on how they could start becoming qualified to help to provide vocational training? That makes sense.
Let me recap a little bit just to make sure that I understood your question right. You're asking about how to support professionals to get involved in this field, or
yeah, so if someone wanted to work at Centered Village, or someone wants to be a job coach, someone wants to kind of enter the field of supporting people of determination in their employment, how could someone get started?
I think one of the greatest resources for everyone who is concerned with people of determination is the website of the Ministry of Community Development. It's a rich, and they provide multiple services for all of the people, everyone who's concerned with people of determination. This can be actually a starting point. Along also with all of those vocational centers in the country, we have multiple vocational centers in the countries. you can directly contact them. Also, we have other Special Olympics is another option as well.
Fantastic. And then there has been a question a couple of times. Are there any plans to duplicate Sanad Village in Abu Dhabi or anywhere else? Is there going to be a replica of what you have in Dubai somewhere else in the future?
Well, I would love to replicate, personally, I would like to replicate Sanad in every single city, to be honest. But this is something that the person who can answer this question is basically the sustainable city top management. They have this plan. Their plan was to create not only a school, to create a community for the kids, for people of determination, a whole community that they can move freely within, and where they feel welcomed all the time. So the model itself, if you're asking me, I'll tell you that yes, it should be replicated everywhere.
I like the community collaboration sounds incredible that you have there.
Yeah.
Another question that came up sort of towards the early part of your presentation was a question about how early do you start with planning vocational preparation, vocational training? Mike talked about kind of the scope from early intervention through adulthood, and you being the director of early intervention programming. Questions about, when are you starting doing a lot of these assessments and kind of planning, and also how much independence and freedom and voice do the young people have in determining what their preference is for their vocational preparation?
All right, this is a great question. I would answer from my perspective as the program director for early intervention. I would say that from the outset of the relationship, whether the student is 3, 4, 5 years old, it doesn't matter when he starts, but I'm always searching for those abilities that the student has, and sparkling physical abilities, or those social abilities, or those technical abilities. I'm looking for those abilities to build upon. So if I have a student who is really, really good in movement and has a great balance, I definitely, the first thing I would do, besides teaching him all the basic skills, all the core skills that he requires to become independent and to be included in a mainstream school. In the same time, I also focus on, polishing and adding more to the talent that the student have. So a vocational training, we should not wait until the student is 9 years old or 10 years old to start to teach him. No, we can actually build on what he has as early as we can. So if the student has musical abilities, all right, I'll teach him all the core skills, and I will teach him all the preschool skills, all the pre-academic skills and all of that. But in the same time, I will also focus on musical part, on him to get more focused music classes. If a student is can use the computer really well, okay, I'll teach him all those skills, but in the same time, I will also work with him on learning other skills like using the keyboard, and at some point using Word, and then using PowerPoints, and hopefully Excel. So this is the main point. We always, most of the people think that vocational starts later on, but in my opinion, this is not the case. The case is we need to start from the beginning and build on the talent of the student or the strong abilities.
Fantastic. It sounds like you and Mr. Mike are on the same page there, 100%, starting early and building. I think we have time for one, I think, really quick question. And that was, are these programs at Sonata Village covered by insurance, or is there another funding source that you have?
Some of our services are, of course, covered in the insurance. This is mainly based on the legislations and policies in Dubai. Sonata Village is also authorized from multiple ministries, and this allows us to do multiple things. What really I would like to focus on is how we can help the students through the different stages of their life, whether it's early intervention or pre-vocational or vocational. The government, as outlined in this presentation, have done its part, give us all the reasons to succeed. Most of the things relies on the centers and the professionals working on in the centers. Those are the people who can help the people of determination or not. So whether this place is funded from certain places or not, after all, it's the quality of service that matters.
Thank you very much for that answer. And if you wouldn't mind, there's also been a request, those suggestions that you had for people who want to start to work in vocational training. I think you mentioned the Ministry of Community Development. Would you be willing to put some of those either links or those names in the chat for people so they could copy those down or write them down?
Yeah, I can.
That would be really helpful. There seems to be a lot of people that got excited about vocational training here tonight. So I think that's a great thing to have more people. So thank you so much for your talk.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to wrap up with some logistics things.
Right.
So I put some links in the chat for everyone. Dr. Michelle looks like she is back, so feel free to jump in if you want to. Do you want to do the logistics?
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah. As you can see, I'm now sitting in my children's playroom. I've been frantically running around the house trying to find the best Wi-Fi in the house. Worst timing. So I look forward to going back to the recording to see what I missed. But yeah, just in terms of those logistics, Dr. Sarah, thank you so much for jumping in. There's two links that are of importance in the chat. The first is the link to the evaluation survey. Please, I encourage all attendees to complete that survey. As I said, it's really important for us to know what we did well and what we can improve upon to further improve our future sessions. And also, it gives you the opportunity to tell us some topics that you would like us to cover in the future. And also, it allows you a chance to tell us how wonderful our speakers were so that we can post all the lovely things about them on social media. And then the second link is for BACB certificates. You know who you are. So anyone in the audience who are BCABAs or BCBAs or BCBADs, please follow, copy and paste that link into your browser that Dr. Sarah posted. You will be asked to enter your name, your email address. Please make sure to enter your email address correctly. And then those two codes that Mike and Mahmoud shared with you. And then you will get an email immediately from Certifium, and it might go to your spam. So please make sure to check that spam folder. So thank you all so very much. We had over 80 people here this evening, so it was just a fantastic turnout. Massive thanks to Ms. Khawla Barley from Special Olympics. Massive thank you to Mr. Mike Ballard from the MRC-NECC, and of course, massive thank you to Mahmoud from Sonata Village. And also thank you to Dr. Sarah for covering that discussion portion of this evening's talk. Our next ACE event will be later this month. I will be sending details out, so that will be hosted by the ABA Journal Club. So more details of that event coming soon. So thank you so much again. Mahmoud, do you have any final words, or are we okay to sign off?
No, I would like to thank you before I go. Thank you so much for the opportunity and for also giving us the opportunity to listen to the presentation from Mike and from Khawla. Thank you so much.
Yeah, fantastic. I think the three of your presentations actually really complemented each other, and you all solidified the information in each other's presentations without having access to them prior to this evening's event. So thank you all so much for your attendance this evening. Please be sure to fill out that survey, stay safe, and see you at the next event. Thank you all.